All right, I believe we're on here, folks. I think we're already on here. We got unfinished projects, 300, W300. Yeah, we're still working on that. It's not yet. We got our YouTube channel where we build junk stuff, and everybody gets all involved in that. You know how that goes, everybody doing that. But anyway, we got Steve Maggs with us. How are you?
Good to see you.
Yep. And the man from down under, Copperhead Customs, he just got out of the bed. I don't care what he said. He's rubbing his eyes.
Hey, how's everyone?
We're good. Yep. Absolutely good. Steve, you've been I'm gonna jump right on this because I love your YouTube channel, your Junkyard Crawl.
Sure.
And you do a lot of stuff with the auctions too, though, right?
Yeah, well, Barrett Jackson, collector car auction for 19 years. I've been part of the broadcast team, and basically my job there is just to give the car a voice in the 4 minutes we have before it goes sold and moves along. But it's a lot of fun. You know, I like to say that I love everything about cars except one thing: they don't talk. So we either have to listen to nothing or give them a voice. And I always say that they deserve more than a guess. So I try to, do a little research. If the GTO is a 3-speed manual, is that shifter on the column or the floor? And if so, let's get ready to show it on the block. What it sells for is okay, who cares? But for me, just showing these cars, whether it's a Duesenberg or a Nash Metropolitan, it's a lot of fun to give a car a voice if it's on the auction block or in the junkyard too.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it, man. I went out here. They had one in Chattanooga last year. We went to, but Meekum. It was Meekum. Now you're with
Barrett Jackson. Yeah,
Barrett Jackson.
Cool. Yeah.
And we had Chip Foose was out there, and I think I actually got to hang out with Chris Jacobs this weekend. I emceed the Emerald Coast Cruise In down in Panama City Beach, Florida. I was down there for 4 solid days. Just got back last night, wore out, man. I'm not kidding you. I am beat because that's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, a lot of fun. But we were down there on the floor at the Meekum auction. Some of them cars going through, I was like, I don't know, but on the screen, man, they're beautiful on the screen.
Well, in the end, they're used machines, right. And as soon as they leave the factory, they begin to unwind, unless they're put in a bag. And a lot of times they're restored, and sometimes the restoration is of middling quality. And, the auction houses rarely make any claim as to what they're selling. And the consignor quite often will bring a vehicle up there that's beautiful, sometimes not so much. So as a bidder, you got to look before you bid,
I know. Well, they look good on TV, man. Up on the screen, well, they were beautiful, and they were bidding hard on that. And I'm talking, man, they must like that car because it's awful friendly because it was actually waving. It was waving at them.
Oh, yeah.
That is.
I like to see this car has more mud than a G.G. Allen concert, if you know what I'm trying to say. I won't elaborate, but
yeah, you don't have to work.
Yeah, but sometimes it's they're just used cars, and one of the things, as we all know, is that I live in Massachusetts right now. I spent 17 years in Los Angeles, and the climate in those two places. I know Australia is pretty dry, right? Not much rust, I'm guessing, but sometimes cars, when they rust, the level of repair work is the problem. Sometimes a high school senior will put Bondo and street signs in the floors of that Roadrunner, and then somebody later has to deal with it, or they don't. It's just the way cars unwind, and hopefully the repairs are done properly, but they're not always done properly. But you can always do that later after you buy it. But
yeah, I'm with you on that. It's amazing though what them cars are bringing out there and some of that stuff they're doing. But and that's a good thing about Bondo. You ain't got to worry about rust.
Yeah, the only thing I find though is Bondo's plastic's a temporary solution to a permanent problem. When you've got a car with enough rust to warrant a quarter panel fudge job, you have a car that probably has rust inside the A-pillars and stuff like that. So I always kind of say, Neil was right, rust never sleeps. And it is true that, when you restore or, get rid of that rust, you have to be really, really diligent to make sure you get it all. And a lot of times, the cars were bondoed up when they were just, $1,000 used Roadrunners or whatever they might have been. And now, 20, 30 years later, that Bondo, if it hasn't unraveled already, it usually does because it separates, looks like poop. But somebody's going to do it right. And the beauty is today there's a restoration aftermarket, AMD, Dynacorn, they make hoods, quarter panels, doors, even I think entire Mustang and Nova bodies. So, if you wait long enough, everything comes full circle.
Well, let's think, Chris was down there at the he was the bling bling for the show. I say, he was the meet and greet guy, but super guy. But when he wasn't signing autographs, he hid with me because I was emceeing the thing and I kind of had a green room to hang out with. But he said he's got involved with a company that's making I guess I call them
finale speed or finale speed. He told me about that. It's kind of cool, and it's amazing. We live in a day now where you can get a carbon fiber charger body, and company like Speed Core. I mean, it is funny. We all probably remember. I'm 58, going on 9, but
there you go.
But we all probably remember when when I was like in 20 years old, 1984, people would say to me, I remember you could buy a 55 Chevy for $50. Well, now we're the guy who can say we could buy a new IROC Z with 5.7, in 2001 for, a couple of grand. Now they're 30 grand, for a nice one. And if you live long enough, eventually everything is like, I remember when, and it's cool. It's a good thing that people still care. But it is shocking. Yeah, I used to think 10 grand for a Hemi car was about it.
Yes.
383 was 5 grand, and then 10 was the 6-pack cars were 7,500, and now it's 100 or 3 or 4 or whatever.
Yeah, crazy. We got Buff's Garage. Hello, guys. Hello, how are you, brother? And then we got Flat Broke Garage. What's up, guys? Full Flat Broke Garage. He joins us sometime. Bless his heart. He has the worst luck of anybody I've ever seen. He can buy a brand new car. I guarantee it, he'll break down before he gets to the store. But
that's part of the fun. Yes, the fun of it.
But you talk about that, like, I was raised on Mopars. That's what we drove, and I think the reason we drove them because they were so cheap, you could buy them for nothing. We had I know the guy that did the Dukes of Hazzard show. He was the lead mechanic for that. I don't know if you know Tom Cimento, but he said they'd give 300 for 318 cars and not over 5 for 440 cars when they did that.
I remember as a kid, in 1979, 80, 81, I was, I was never a huge Dukes of Hazzard fan because it's kind of a cartoon. It's an interesting show, but it's not exactly Shakespeare. But with that said, and Bo and Luke, there was interesting. And Daisy Duke, who didn't love her, But I remember I'd always be watching when they'd show the Charger jump, and I'd always watch. Sometimes you'd say a Dana 60 in the back of that thing, which means that was a 440 4-speed car. And when it landed, bang, and usually a 69 would take off, a 70 would land with the front bumper painted to make it not look so much like a 70, but they just were fast and loose. But it's sad to think that I know that David Freiberger, I used to work with him at Hot Rod. He was my boss, and he's now part of, Roadkill, Freiberger, but he lived in that area. He said in Burbank, there were basically every Charger that was ever around was suddenly gone by 1981, 82, because Warner Brothers bought them up and painted them orange and jumped them, and you go to the pick apart, they would be all bent up. And now they're, $10,000 for a door, for what for a movie car. But it's cool.
Yeah. I'm like you, as a kid growing up, I thought the Dukes of Hazzard, that was the coolest thing in the world. But now when you go back and look at it, you're like, oh my Lord, man, I can't believe it. But we had better imaginations back in the day. I think.
Yeah. And the bar was set lower. I don't know, network television didn't have much competition, you know what I mean? And there were some shows, Mork and Minnie. I mean, a lot of the shows back then were, I think, just like bubblegum, not meant to be chewed too hard.
Yeah.
They're funny, but you can't really movies. I mean, everything, popular culture, it ranges the gamut, and the Dukes of Hazzard, the movies were far better. They had a sense of humor and they were self-aware that they were corny. You know what I mean? The TV show was okay. I know some people took that seriously. That's okay. That's all right. But the Dukes Fest is a cool thing, though. The whole.
I love Johnny Knoxville, man. He was a killer in that. Him and that other guy. That was a lot of fun. But I'm a huge Rockford fan. I love the Rockford Files. Still to this day, I love the Rockford Files.
Yeah. I always thought it interesting how we always drove an Esprit, not a Trans Am, because you wanted to be kind of undercover. But apparently, Robert, the fellow, the driver, quite a famous dude. But anyway, Mitchum, no. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But Rockford would have the cars up-spec'd to Trans Am, of course, so they could do the J turns, the Rockford turns on TV. What was the man's name? The actor. I can picture his face, but anyway, it doesn't. James Rockford, the actor, I forget who played him. It wasn't James Mitchell.
James Garner or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
What now?
Garner? Is that who you're looking for?
Talking about the guy that drove for Rockford. No, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, good character actor, but I mean more than that. But anyway, but TV, and Kit the Knight Rider, kind of cool, and nowadays it's kind of funny, used to be like if there's a movie came out, they had remember Phantasm came out like in 1990, and there was a CUDA in that, and if you go see the movie because of a CUDA, well now muscle cars are so mainstream. Every movie, I think the new Matrix movie has our friend Keanu Reeves driving around in a 70 CUDA, so like they're so mainstream, and I got to say, I remember as a kid, in the 80s, and in the late 70s, the muscle cars were in the hands of the third and fourth owners, here in Massachusetts, snow tires on the back, just rusted shackles, and just at the The final owner had them at that point in time because nobody else wanted them.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved to California from Massachusetts in 1991. And when I got there, the climate toward older cars was not good. They were called clunkers, gross polluters, and there were crush campaigns on. Oh, that was terrible stuff. Union 76 and other companies, their idea was that they instigate pollution credits. So basically bring us your old car, and Chevron would give you $700. They'd crush the car, get that menace off the road, clean up the air. Meanwhile, Chevron's refinery could keep cranking out the smoke out the sky. So it was kind of it's a weird thing. So thankfully, I say, at least they're not clunkers and gross polluters anymore. In fact, they're on the cover of the New York Times as investments, so it's cool. It's a good thing. It kind of sucks a little bit because you can't buy them for nothing anymore. But
well, that's the thing, and I read, of course. Okay, you wasn't talking about Angel Martin on the Rockford Files. I don't know.
No.
It'll hit me in a minute. We got all that.
Just do James something, not Mitchum. Garner, James Garner. Garner.
Yeah, James Garner. Yeah.
I just said that. Did you said that? Did you?
Yeah. It's okay. We got it. Yeah, I love James Garner. I love all his movies, man.
Right.
He was a car guy. That was the cool thing about him. He was a car guy.
And no relation to Jennifer Garner, the actress, by the way. I found that.
Right.
Yeah, she was married to Ben Affleck, I think. She's a pretty girl. Anyway, no relation.
We live and learn.
Yep.
Yeah, live and learn. But I don't know that them ad campaigns like you say, and I knew a guy that actually went and picked some up in Atlanta. They had that thing going on back, I think, during the bomb or whatever it was, and they wouldn't let you take one part off of them. You couldn't take any part off of the whatsoever. They were sitting there.
And there was that whole thing where they had to destroy the engine. Remember that? They'd get the engine fired up and they'd pour it was like water glass, glycerin of some kind. It would seize the engine. It's like kill the beast, kill the dinosaur. It was like this weird medieval ritual. It was dumb. But the beautiful thing was, it was like, killing the dragon, slay it, strike it 3 times in the heart. And I remember in California, same thing. There was a thing where the cars, if you turn your car into a smog campaign and for those credits to count, the thing that made the smoke, the drivetrain, engine, transmission had to be incapacitated. So you go to pick apart or call you auto wrecking or you pull parts. So there's chains in LA. I used to hit every one of them every week. And you would see cars with an X on the engine, which meant that they either fired a sandblaster into the carburetor wide open to wear it out, or they'd use a jackhammer and literally break the block and the head and the intake so you couldn't ever use it again. Yeah. But the body parts could be sold for the 30 days the thing sat before they crushed the shell. It was heartbreaking. Yeah. And the root of my junkyard crawl, I do a thing called the Junkyard Crawl. It's basically a YouTube channel every single day, as long as it's not snowing, and it is right now. A new video. I do about an 8 to 12 minute walk around on anything from a Saab turbo convertible to a Rio dump truck to a 69 Charger, you name it. And I just give it a voice. Hudson's, Nash's, everything. I've got a great junkyard nearby with thousands of weird everythings. But the thing of it is, when I was in California, when I got there from Massachusetts, I saw them crushing beautiful, clean station wagons, 4 doors and even 2 doors in many cases. Nobody appreciated them there because, the fashion of LA is not to have an older car, and who cares anyways about a 68 Barracuda coupe, So they'd go to the junkyard, they would pull all the fenders off, and the beauty was $30 a fender. It didn't matter what was off of, you could buy things, and they'd crush the shell every 30 days. So I started to bring my camera. You had to sneak it in because they didn't want you taking pictures of oil in the water, they were good about being diligent about the environment, but they were really upset. So I'd take pictures, and then finally I said, hey, can I do this for Hot Rod? And when I was at Hot Rod Magazine, we do a thing called the Junkyard Crawl or the Junkyard Jewel. We'd get parts and pieces from the boneyard. And that was the beginning of it, the idea that these cars should be saved, and then giving them a historical, just walking. I say that junkyards aren't junkyards. They're museums. They're repositories of industrial art and history. And they should almost get like an exempt status, They're not nuisances. They're educational places.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, I love your Junkyard Crawl. I love the info that you bring on a lot of cars that I had no idea about, and I think that's really cool. I'm just like you. But the junkyards are going away, man. They're fighting hard to get rid of them. I mean, they're fighting hard.
There's that. I mean, it's been a while. I know what you're saying. I've been deep. Before this thing, I did a thing called, it was on Motor Trend, and before that, it was on Motor Trend Studios. It was called Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. We did 3 seasons, and they were successful, but all things must pass. And, my experience with television, my hair is now gray because I don't care about looking 40. Or because sometimes casting people will say, well, thank you, Steve. And they'll say, well, we like him. He looks a little too old. Next, they won't tell you that.
Right.
So, it's just, who cares? But so I just go to the YouTube and just bang it out, but with that said, we had the Roadkill's Junkyard Gold, 3 seasons of that. And we went all over the country. I mean, we went, and it was a budget. It was nice of them to fly me all over the place. And then we go to Junkyard. So there's a fair number, a lot of them. But again, it is correct. Small collections. A guy who's got 30 Corvairs in his backyard. It's tough to keep that alive without some zone enforcement person coming telling you have an eyesore, even though it's boarded. And they even come at you with photographs from Google Earth saying, hey, you have 15 cars behind that barn. Tell us if they're registered. And they said, we got to get rid of them. And that's where people, go ballistic in some cases. It's sad because you're told to get rid of your stuff. Now, I get it. If you and I all bought new houses and a next door neighbor started piling up old Edsels in the front yard, I'd love it. But at the same time, you got to be, I think a lot of folks maybe just, piled up old junk a little too long and made it hard for a collection of cars to be called a good thing.
Yeah, well, they'd be upset. They'd be upset with me because I've got a yard full. 15 would be a very low number for the junk I've got scattered out up through. My daddy's been at it for a long time.
Yeah. And more power to him, and I think, I don't know, I kind of want to maybe start working with SEMA or something like that, maybe to sort of defang the nuisance law thing. And if you're properly fenced and you're not, pouring gas into the water, whatever, that kind of bad stuff. Then a lot of people do it, but sometimes that sort of thing, maybe just get these things, an easement for people to have a collection of historic monuments, if you will.
Well, I still live in a small town where I'm at. I still live in a small town, so there's not a lot. We don't have any of the zoning, and I fought the zoning a lot for my part of the country because, if it's your property, you can do what you want to with it, And you have people saying, well, you're hurting the property value. I said, well, what's the difference if you buy beside me and build a multi-million-dollar house? You're running my property value up. So what's the difference? I don't know, but
that's a good point. Yeah.
So
you stand your ground.
Yeah. I stand I'm on the radio, man. I've got the bully pit here. It don't matter. But I'm for the little man, but the same, just like, you're talking about crushing all the cars. I've got an old Ford backhoe up here. It's like a 555B backhoe. I blowed a hydraulic cylinder on that. I went to Ford to get it because I couldn't find the one I needed. Ford said they discontinued it because the tractor dealership did, because they had a deal somehow through the government and through EPA that after so many years discontinue the parts because they want you to get rid of the old tractor.
Forced obsolescence.
Yeah. And I thought, man, it's sad because you got these old farmers out here trying to make it and they're driving junk like I am. It's sad. It really is. It's sad.
Well, thank goodness for eBay. You know what I mean? There's always a workaround, but it is a stinker when things. I mean, I will say one. I study a lot of older cars, and in the 1950s, you got to remember that seat belts were something that automakers resisted because it reminded people of the danger of driving.
Right.
In fact, in 1956, Ford had this whole campaign of selling safety, padded dashes, recessed steering wheels, and areas that like knobs and things that wouldn't put a hole in you if you came smashing against them with no seatbelt, by the way, in the car. And they used to say that, Ford's selling safety while Chevrolet's selling cars.
Yeah.
In other words, people didn't really care. But so suddenly Uncle Sam, the government gets involved in the 60s and mandatory seatbelt installation. You don't have to wear them as long as they're there. That's so this, a little bit of government intervention is an okay thing. And I got to say, modern cars with their 100,000 mile exhaust systems made of stainless. I remember you could buy a muffler 1 year, and a year and a half later, it was blown out. Remember when exhaust shops were everywhere because the exhaust systems were meant to rot away.
Yeah.
Gas stream. So it's not always a bad thing, like when you take off the exhaust system from your 09 Charger or whatever it is, it's stainless. It's going to be around forever. And the boreless system is there too. But at least, exhaust systems and certain things live a long life because of regulation or whatever you want to call it. It's a double-edged sword. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm for drive it like you stole it, man. I still live in a county that you don't have the, as far as Cadillac converters, we don't have to go and have our cars checked or not.
Good. Yeah. Yes. So, same. Yeah. I mean, Massachusetts. I think but I'm in Massachusetts where I moved back here 12 years ago. When I left Mass in 1990, it was a tough place to be a hot rodder. I'd drive around my 64 Polara with M&H DOT slicks on the back. Cops would pull me over. Hey, well, they're DOTs, officer, and you're okay because they have Department of Transportation and they're okay. They're slicks, but they have little tiny grooves in them, those DOTs. But now it seems like the Massachusetts, there's no emissions checks of any kind for stuff, I think, 10 years and older. I was shocked, amazed. Yeah. It was wonderful. And there was a lot of dead end programs for a little while here. They had this dumb chassis dyno thing you had to put the car on. It was a small thing, and it would simulate a 45-mile-an-hour drive. And then it would then read the exhaust if you passed or not under real conditions. Well, all these shops bought those things, and a year later they got rid of them. So there's a huge backlash, just left, right, goofy stuff. So yeah, so emissions laws are important, but cars now are so clean for so long.
Oh yeah,
it's not an issue, like it was.
Yeah. Well, now you lived out in California. I don't understand. California has got the most strict car laws of any state that I know of. But that's where, that's where all the hot rods. That's where you got Chip Foose out there. You got Jay Leno's out there with all his stuff. I'd be like loading my stuff up and leaving.
Yeah, what I'll say about that is when I got there, that the smog stuff was in full effect, and the reality is, I used to drive to and from a hot rod magazine for 7 years. I was tech editor there from 1991 through 04, I think it was, or 98 to 04. But I had a 31-mile commute that was 2.5 hours long, right? And it's astonishing. There's always 1,000 cars running at any given second on any mile of road in California, and if they're not emissions controlled, that's a stinky problem. And in fact, 1959, early 60s, there were green clouds in the sky over Los Angeles. So the emissions control thing on cars is a good thing, because frankly, it's smog, baby. It's a good thing. So, but now they're cleaned up and it's cool. But it is true that there was a very strong anti-automobile sentiment in California, because there's a lot of people, a lot of gridlock. I get it, but sometimes laws made for that place go to the other parts of the country where they're not really applicable. So
now there's actually something to where you can't change the motor out of a certain.
Oh yeah, that's a terrible thing. Yeah, well, there's a thing where it used to be pre-65 you could burn coal, and they wouldn't. But after that, it became a thing where, and I was there. SEMA did a thing. There was Senate Bill 42, and the idea was a rolling exemption. Every year, like 75, 76, 77, 78, eventually would catch up, and cars didn't have to go through smog. Well, it stopped at 1975. They got it from 67 through 75, the rolling exemption. Before that, cars before 68 had to be emissions compliant. So if you had a GTX or something like that, 67, you put headers on it, you had to go through smog check every other year. It was horrible. So now it's 1975, but unfortunately they stopped it at 75. This is 10 years ago, but that means 5-liter Mustangs, IROC Zs, Shelby Chargers, stuff from the 80s. Those cars have to be stock when they go for their every other year, or now every year, is you have to be visual and tailpipe. It's a stinker, no pun intended.
But why would you want to? I don't understand. Why would you want a rod shop out there when you can't do any? It just seemed like it'd be the wrong part of the country.
You focus on pre-75 cars is what you do.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
There's a lot of good ones, but again, IROCs and the stuff out of the 80s, those are kind of orphaned, because Grand National Buicks, don't mess with that car unless you have there's a thing called an executive EO number. If you buy like anything from Edelbrock or whatever for street use, it actually has to go through emissions testing in California. It has an EO sticker. You put that on your engine bay, so the cop can, okay, you're good, keep going. Otherwise, they can send you to a referee station and have you take that off, or keep you from driving. It's a bad problem. But at the same time, living there for 17 years, smog is very real.
Yeah.
And, the air is cleaner than it's ever been. But they say that as they clean the air, more and more vehicles fill the road. If you've ever driven in Los Angeles at rush hour, it's not an hour. It's like 4 hours of inching in traffic. So, with all those cars sitting and idling, it is a problem. It's a congestion issue. And, but it's a localized thing. And when those laws are applied to the countryside, it's not right.
Yeah, well, that's like Copperhead down there, man, in Australia, son. They rock him down there. Yeah. He gets caught laying a drag, they can crush his car, right?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, well, it sounds like what you were just saying, California. I think they're very similar.
Yeah. Now, Copperhead, don't mean to dominate the conversation. I had a friend of mine.
Oh, good. I'm listening.
Yeah,
you're an encyclopedia. I've been watching. You're like an encyclopedia of knowledge on cars. I was sitting there watching him going, how the hell is he rattling all this info off? And then I went to the next car, and he's like, he's going again. Well, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. I do make some notes sometimes. I mean, nobody can, it's like a sports, savants, if you will, who can tell you what Reggie Jackson did on October 12th, 1971, or, I don't know. I guess, I'm not like that with cars, but, I love him, But I had a friend in Australia, Dave Mahoney. I don't know if you ever know. He's a Mopar guy, but he'd come to LA and he'd buy 4 or 5 cars, put them in a shipping container, ship them down under, and sell them, save them. Because many times you'd buy a car from somebody in LA who really didn't care or know that 65 Falcon was a pretty cool little car. So Dave would snap it up for $1,200, ship it down under, and maybe get 5 or 6 for it. This is back in like 1999, like that. But he did say that he had to be careful. If he had any cars, like an altered wheelbase funny car or anything with a welded chassis, it had to be inspected by the Australian authorities, correct? I mean, is that true that if you put a straight axle onto your 55 Chevy, you've got to go through a referee to get it approved? Or
yeah, you won't get it. You won't get it. Pretty much won't get it. They've got to be pretty much stock.
Wow. Now, I mean, I will say we've all seen certain rat rods, and I have a bunch of weird old cars, but I don't want to hurt anybody else, so I'm always sure that if I have a welded in, I built a few straight axle and altered wheelbase cars, and I'm always sure that the welds are good and there's nothing goofy. But we've all seen some rat rods that are kind of deadly. You know what I mean? So I understand it, but at the same time, it's if you're a hot rodder, chances are pretty good. You don't want to hurt yourself or the car, so you're doing good work. It may not look good, but yeah, it's got to be problematic to not be able to.
99% of the rat rods you have over there, we wouldn't be able to drive.
Yeah.
They're very, very, very strict on what you can do.
Yeah.
Hey, I bought a Dodge truck. It's about a 95 Dodge truck that had the threaded rod bent for the U-bolt.
Okay. Wow. Threaded rod, not exactly heat treated metal, but
get it around, bolted on. So,
okay,
He was a dirt tracker.
Yeah. Now here's
you pulled that off a dirt tracker, didn't you?
There you go. You're right. Yep.
Now, can Australian hot rodders, do they have a voice? Can you push back? Is there a way to get around that? Or is it just is there an iron fist? How's that work? Is the law like basically you can bend it? Can you lobby?
No. There's like a hot rod association. Yeah. They do it. So, like with the hot rods side, you have to put an approval to build into them and with what you want to build, and then they say yes or no, or change this, or you can't run that, or what you can and can't do, and then you've got to get it inspected 3 times throughout the build at different stages, and then they got to come and they check your welding and they check how you're doing it and the quality of build, and then or they'll say no, you can't have this or you can't have that. So I just found out last week I've got a 38 Chev that I'm doing, and I can't put airbags in it.
You can't? What?
Yeah.
Because I was going to put airbags in it, and so I could just drop it on the ground, But yeah, I was just about to start doing it, and someone come and bought a part off me, and he's going through the process now, and he said the engineer said he couldn't put airbags in it, so in his. So
even if it's a kit from like Air Ride Technologies or something like that,
Nah.
Wow.
Couldn't do it. So like there is cars here with them. So, but like to go through this hot rod, the hot rod thing's quite strict. Yeah, no, weren't happy about it. So
I remember watching, Mad Max, The Road Warrior. You know what I mean? If you can outrun the cops, can you get away? I'm kidding. But can you do that stuff to your car just don't get caught, or do they see it when they inspect it every year or two?
Oh no. So each state's a little bit different. Where I'm in Queensland, and we have a roadworthy when you like buy or sell your car, you sell it with a roadworthy where you have. So I actually have my own like bloke that does all my stuff that I sell. So when you get to know them, they can be a little bit more on your side, a little bit, yeah. But they're just like an independent person, like a mechanic or whatever that's gone and got his license to do it, and that's just he just checks numbers, and the car's roadworthy, like not wheels gonna fall off sort of thing, and so they do one of them only in Queensland. It's just when you buy and sell the car.
Okay.
So there's no inspections until you go to sell it again.
Okay, so if you buy something you're planning to modify heavily, you can kind of do it as long as
then it's like a grey area. The coppers, if they can defect your stuff, so even they don't even really know what they're looking at. But if they just see something on there that they know is aftermarket or whatever, they can sort of defect it, even though they're probably 9 times out of 10 incorrect. But the other issue is the insurance won't cover you. See, so if you got into a crane and had airbags, and the insurance worked out you're not meant to have airbags, they won't cover you. So
yeah, I got you.
That's aggravating. Nathan's Mopar Garage. Hello, everyone. He's got a long roof. That's the thing you were talking about earlier about station wagons and stuff like that. They call them long roofs or station wagons or whatever. They're getting pretty they're getting pretty popular right now. The wagons are.
Yeah, it looks like a '68 Coronet from here, and if that's a 383 4-speed, I think that's what that is. That blue car in that picture, those are cool. I like that it looks very sinister and kind of stock, and I like to imagine it's got a street Hemi and a 4-speed and a Dane, like a what if street Hemi wagon. You know what I mean? But that's where I go. And like in the junkyard, I always say it is a Boss 429 Mustang until I walk up on it and make sure it's not.
Yeah,
that's one of the thrill of the hunt. When you go to the junkyard. But yeah.
Well, you never know. Now you found a couple of cars. We got unfinished products. Hey, y'all, he's got a hornet's nest hanging in his.
Yeah.
You can have that. Yeah, you can have that. But now, have you come across any really? I mean, there's a couple of them. You say, well, I might buy this or might take that. I mean, you've come across some pretty cool finds.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's been a few situations like with Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. We were at a junkyard out in, I believe it was Texas. Anyway, but we found, I always look at VIN numbers. We found the third 1971 Firebird made, and it was just it was a Firebird Esprit, I believe, actually, a 352 barrel car, but the VIN 003. Kind of cool, so you say, okay. I mean, everything starts somewhere, but with that said, usually the first 50 VINs are known as pilot cars. They're built in slow motion on the line, and sometimes with pre-production parts that are kind of like from the mules and the Alpha and Beta builds, and they wind up in production. You pull your door panels off, you get this weird, sort of sample, it'll say on the back of it. It's kind of cool. So the first 50 cars can be interesting just because if you're a geek, but then again, coin collectors will tell you that a 1909 SVDB penny is not just a penny. It's $5,000 because of the S and the VDB on it. You know what I mean? So in some cases, a low VIN car can have really neat stuff in it that geeks like us who are big in number care about. So I always kind of look at the VIN. But so the third 71 Firebird ever made was cool. And I found street Hemis in junkyards. Sometimes the people knew what they had. In one case, in a junkyard in Claremont, New Hampshire, back in 1988, there was a 66 Charger sitting there, the whole side cut out of it, just junk. But I looked at it, it was a torque box in front of the leaf spring. That's basically Hemi-only stuff. And I said, hey, it's a Hemi car. And it had an H pipe, an old tube on it, and it was just nobody cared. But next week it was gone. It was the shell of a Hemi car.
Yeah. That's all. Yeah. Now, did you buy the Firebird or anything else?
No. Yeah. The thing with it is, like a lot of times, like with Roadkill's Junkyard Gold, there was 3 seasons. And what I do now, I work in a place called, I don't work there, but I go to Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Mass. And in fact, I see Unfinished Project. He's a comment every morning. People comment in Unfinished Project. I see him. He writes in. It's kind of cool. But at Bernardston, there are lots and lots of cars, and I sometimes say, hey, this is for sale. I stay out of the middle, but if you want to call them, you can. Right. And the owners have sold a few cars here and there. It's fine with me, but I'm just there to kind of give the car a voice, describe how it's cool and then move on. Like I was there yesterday and I photographed a bunch. What I usually do is I take pictures of each vehicle, engine, VIN, whatever it is, and then at my house, I select 7 vehicles for that week's video blast. We do all 7 in one day, usually Thursday or Friday. And then in those pictures, I just decided what I'm going to say about the car. And there was a 1950 Studebaker V8, first year.
You're giving away your secrets. You shouldn't be telling us this.
Yeah, you tell me secrets.
It's okay. I never
thought you knew all that in your head.
That's right. I thought you just
there's a dry erase
like this.
Well, yeah, the thing with that is, there was a brief period of time on Barrett Jackson where Jay Leno wanted to bring me and Justin Bell and the other guys, potentially, it was talked about, onto the Tonight Show. And I thought, oh, no. Okay, Steve, paint code for XYZ. I'm like, I don't know, Jay, but I know where to look. So I don't ever want to be that guy who pretends, but I know where to look. And, it's not like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain on the Wizard of Oz, But in my videos, you can sometimes see the dry erase board. And you can sometimes see, I write on the fender, 383 2-barrel, $89 extra. I don't care. It's just because I'm a reporter is what I am. And as long as, people know that I always say that cars deserve more than a guess and, do some research before you go in and, fill your library before you fill your garage. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I'm with you. Nathan said he's got a stock 440 in that. That's sweet, man. Ain't no doubt whether it's whether it's an automatic or not. Yep. I'm all about that. That's cool.
Sleeper. Yeah.
Definitely a sleeper. But that, I'm gonna tell you, you was talking about, getting pretty actors for all that stuff. I was up there with Chris Jacobs down there in Florida, and I was talking about how he started with the that not Roadkill, whatever it was, the show he was on, and I said, well, how'd that work out? He said, well, I just went and auditioned for it, and they picked me, to do
Overhauling.
Yeah, overhauling. I said, well, you know, I did the same thing, man. I auditioned for that show, but for some reason they didn't want no short, fat, bald-headed guy. I don't know, you know, because Chris is a big old tall boy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah, he's a good guy. I worked with him at Barrett Action for 4 or 5 years, and it's funny now he works for the enemy. I shouldn't say that.
There
but,
you go.
You know, Meekum. And it's just Coke, Pepsi, M&Ms, Hershey's. You know, he's a good dude, and he knows his cars. Just had a kid, I believe. He had a little daughter, pretty nice little kid, and so he's a good dude. Jacob.
Yeah, he's got a 1-year-old baby girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told him, I said, there goes your cars, brother. They're gone.
I think he's doing okay. He can have them both, I think, but he's got some nice cars, Grand National, a little 930, a little Porsche. It's cool. The only thing I say, living in LA, all I can say is, I was there for 17 years. I wasn't even in LA. I was in El Monte, which is near like Pomona. I could hear the Top Fuel finals at the Winter Nationals just echoing. I loved it. People around there don't like it, which is like, why'd you buy a house next to a drag strip? The rest of that one. But the beauty of that was I could go drag racing. But the only thing that was kind of bad was there's so many cars that when you take your funny car Nova out for a drive, your Hemi Dart or whatever, I had some weird cars, you're sitting in traffic 99% of the time. It's like between midnight and 4 a.m. is the only time you can kind of get out, not beat on it, but just not have to stop every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I loved LA, but the only problem was it was overcrowded. I did my part to make it better. I left.
There you go. And they're leaving right and left. You got out there you got ahead of the curve because they're leaving California as hard as they can. They're coming here, I believe. They're just, which I don't blame them, all the crazy stuff going on. But let me ask you another question. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and you go back to all these car builders and stuff. Okay, now I'm a Mopar guy, just like you are. I was raised on Mopars. Of course, I'm at the point now. I got in the used car business there in the mid 80s, or I guess the 90s or whatever. And that's when I figured out that all cars are junk. I don't care what they are. They're all junk. Just
every car is an armpit.
Yeah. So I started collecting I got all kinds now. I got Chevrolet, Fords, you name it. If I like it, I buy it.
Yep.
But that forward look for the Chrysler that year, that forward look they went through, what is it? 50. I'm going to say 56 because I've got a 56.
Yeah. Virgil Exner. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. But then when they hit, I guess, 60 kind of started, but 61 through about 63. Now he was the same designer for that car, right?
Yeah, well, it was Virgil Exner. I don't have his book right here, but Virgil Exner was the stylist. He was started at Studebaker in the 1930s and stuff. But Exner, he was in charge of Chrysler styling, and his themes were seen throughout. And it is true that now the thing is, there's a book called Virgil Exner Imagineer by Peter Grist. It's a great book. It tells the story. Well, Virgil, he had lung cancer, right? Mm-hmm. And so he spent a lot of time in the hospital. And sometimes when you're not in the office every day, it's kind of hard to maintain control. I don't know, but it's described in the book, that basically is absent. Sometimes things got a little sideways, but there you have it. But it is true that Chrysler styling went from beautiful to weird. I've got a 62 Dodge Dart. That's the B body. It's like the old Max Wedge, like a 4-door cop car. It's the weirdest looking thing on wheels. When I was a kid, they frightened me. They were weird, like a razor coming down the road, a shaving razor, this weird thing. And who would design a thing like that? It just was very, very odd. In fact, let me grab something here. I have visual aids. Well, like this, like,
well, I'm gonna tell you, I love that car. I do. I love them cars. I fell in love with them.
But there was like Dodge Phoenix over here.
Yeah, there was sales poison. I mean, sales went way, way down because of these odd. Now, the beauty of these things was underneath them.
Oh yeah,
they were engineering wise and before they were cool, but they were odd. A 62 Impala is a graceful, beautiful thing. So it is odd sometimes how styling can just go so crazy sideways.
Is it the same?
Yeah, that's it. Is that your car?
No, that's a 62 Dodge Phoenix over here.
Yeah, Phoenix. Okay. We're called darts here, but okay, or 330s. Cool, Phoenix. Yeah.
But when did Virgil quit? Okay, Sean want to ask you about Formula One super stock tires. Are you still looking for Formula One super stock tires?
Oh, not too much. I was on a hunt for bias plies, like 60s and 50s and stuff, wide boots, but not too much. But thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, you've got that car yours, but there's a man here. Of course, he passed away, but he was into them cars heavy. I mean, he'd take the station wagons and he would actually just change the doors and make a 2-door out of them. It's simple to do. Yeah. But I fell in love with him. I love them cars. But now, how long was he? Did he go to 63 or what year did he quit?
Yeah. His influence on styling. I think he left the building. I think in 62.
Right.
Elwood Engel came from Lincoln Mercury / Ford to
Right.
Chrysler, and his influence was seen almost immediately. The 65 Newports, Chrysler's beautiful looking cars, very slick, very much like the Lincoln Continental.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
You know, and that was Elwood Engel, kind of not cleaning up shop, but getting away from the space age craziness that was part of the Exner era. You know, but it took a team to do those cars, and they must have seemed like a good idea at some point in time, clearly. But Chrysler sales were Dodge and Plymouth sales in 1962. By 65, they were triple. They went up because the styling was that weird. You know, it was kind of a crisis, kind of weird. You know, but they're great little cars. You know, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
On today's, if you get a chance after this, on my Junkyard Crawl YouTube channel, today's subject is a Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. Right, the little weird sports car. Virgil Exner designed that thing, and it's a fact that Ghia kind of borrowed it and allowed Volkswagen to utilize it, and the whole story is spelled out in today's Junkyard Crawl. So if you see a Volkswagen Carmen Ghia, you can thank Virgil Exner. He had a car called the D'Elegance, which was a show car, 1953, Hemi powered, but it was a 12/10 scale Carmen Ghia. If you look at it, the roof.
It is. The roof's just identical. Is it the same size roof, or is it a little bit bigger? Because it looks like
it's a little different. Yeah, I mean the D'Elegance is a pretty tidy little car, but it's big. It's got a 331 Hemi up front. The Carmen Ghia is basically a Beetle on a 98-inch wheelbase, but the styling's there. It's the same thing. In fact, Volkswagen, they gave Virgil Exner the first Carmen Ghia in Detroit, in Michigan, as a little thank you, and maybe not a don't sue us thing. I mean, but there's a whole thing, you know, and the beauty of the car world is weird stories like that. Like, you know, I didn't know that. And I try to, in every one of the videos, 8 to 12 minutes, just if I say to myself, I didn't know that, as I do my research, I think somebody's going to care about this. And that's the cherry on top, I guess, you know, it's giving the car a voice and letting something about it that's obvious to somebody somewhere come out and say, well, I didn't know that. You know, like 3-speed manual and GTO, there was a Saginaw, a little light duty thing, and a Ford produced top loader in a 3-speed if you got the heavy duty on the floor. And a Pontiac GTO, they used a Ford 3-speed in the mid 60s. Sure. But, you know, it's just interesting little things that most people, and by the time those cars were in the second and third hands owners, somebody put a 4-speed in there because the pedals were already there. The 3-speed's long gone on the shop floor and thrown away. But a lot of 3-speed manuals were sold in those cars to keep the base price under $3,000 because the 4-speeds are $180. You know, it's a lot of money. So all these little stories that just don't tell themselves, you know.
I'm with you on that. I love to listen to it. But, you know, in 60, okay, I'm a huge fan. Of course, I've got one. I guess I hadn't got it out running yet, but the 64 Dodge 880, I thought that was the prettiest car. That was a very well-designed car. Now, I guess, so Virgil, he quit, and then you had
Elwood Engel, and there was others too. Bob Brownlee as a whole. As you know, like same with like Harley Earl or Bill Mitchell at GM. There were hundreds of people who actually executed the ideas, but he was the fellow who signed off on them and says, "Go that way with it." So it takes a team, and often those poor folks are working on anonymity. But yeah, it is true that 64. That's a beautiful car, full C body.
I love it. Yeah. I like the front and the back. Sometimes you like the front of the car, you don't like the back or whatever. But
it's almost like a committee was designed it. These guys, the camel committee on the front, the horse committee on the back, but they stuck it together because we're going to press.
Yeah. But that's like, you think about Ford. Okay, Ford come out in 1960 with that Starliner. Yeah. Beautiful roof line on the Starliner.
Then they go to stars on the
then they go to 61. They still got that pretty roof. And then they go to 62 and it's a square, looked like they put a shoebox on top. Yeah. I'm like, who was thinking?
Same thing happened at Chevy. The bubble tops gone in 63. It's kind of funny, but it is true. I mean, at that point, there were no federal rollover safety standards, but those cars, when they rolled over, the roof would collapse. I mean, you had to be hauling butt to have something like that happen. But it's possible that, the car maker said, hey, this is beautiful, but it's a little too delicate to be, on top of a 2-ton automobile. Don't know. But same thing happened at Chevrolet, same period of time. Yeah, the bubble tops are beautiful, but those thin pillars, there's a price, if you flip over.
So now, you bought that. You actually bought a cop car. You bought a 60. What model was your 62?
It's a 62 Dodge Dart, and you got to remember the term Dart. And people think little compact cars. 62 is a midsize, the first B body, which eventually became the Charger, the Roadrunner, Super B, all that kind of stuff. But it's it's this thing here. But the one I bought it in Texas at a Spanky Assiter's outdoor Texas thing. and it's an actual Texas police car. It's got the 9 in the VIN. It's a 318 Poly, unfortunately, but it has the 11-inch drums, the big sway bars. Basically, it's like Roadrunner suspension. In other words, the Roadrunner had police suspension, is the other way of saying it. But a lot of times, cop cars are 4-door muscle cars. So my plan with that is to put a max wedge in it. It's a 4-door and just leave it alone. It's very patina. I don't have a picture of it here, but
I've watched it. You started working on it with your video.
I did. I have to apologize in a sense to. We did 11 videos on that car just about a year ago, and it went silent. Here's why. I have my camera guy 1 day a week.
Right.
1 day a week. That's the problem. So I can either do 7 junkyard videos or do all my work on that car in 1 day. And the trouble is, if I work on that car and there's no camera there, it didn't happen. You know what I mean? So I'm saving that car until such time as I have a second cameraman or my guy can give me more than 1 day a week.
Yeah. I was wondering because I was watching it and I'm like, this is cool because I like cop cars, but a lot of, I like cop cars. I do. I mean, I think they're cool. Of course, back in the day, we'd find them old cop cars. First thing we do is pull the motor and transmission out of them because they're 440s. And, I've got a couple of them to this day.
Yeah. I
don't know what the deal is, but it's always, it's a 440 police interceptor, but we were happy.
Yeah, big brakes, big suspension. The Blues Brothers are right. Cop suspension, cop brakes,
I've actually built a Blues Brothers car. We got that just for fun. That was the best, easiest build, man. We didn't take dents, rust, or nothing. We painted everything.
Just get a Royal Monaco and
do it up, man. Don't even take the dents out of it. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, how long did you was with that Junkyard Gold on TV for a long time, and then
it was 3 seasons. It was 3 years, and I was ready to do more. The ratings were good, and then I don't know. I won't get into it too much, but there was a change of direction. There was a sense that it was too technical. And okay, it was just kind of so, and it took 9 months for me to find out the show was over. I was the last one to know that it was over, which wasn't so much fun. So anyway, so I said, well, I got to do something here. So I started doing the YouTube, and highly recommend it. If you have a story to tell and you have a little camera, do it. It's wonderful. And it's being able to tell your story and not have somebody say, well, we like it, but we think it needs another beat. I'll tell you this, David Freiberger at Motor Trend had the vision. He says, Steve, let's try this Junkyard Gold thing. And it was a test and did well. So it went 3 seasons, but there was a change of ownership at Motor, blah, blah, blah. So it died, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But before that, for 7 years, I was trying to get that same show, a Junkyard Treasure Hunt, on Speed Channel, on Velocity Channel, and just nobody got it. But again, sometimes the decision makers at TV networks are the obstacle between the product and the viewer. I have to say that. It's been my experience. It's sad.
I sent you that message there when I was in Chattanooga. I can't remember the guy's name that does the barn finds or whatever, but they're fixing to start that back up. I don't know if you contacted
Tom Kotler or Kotler.
Yeah.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Sure. Yeah.
You ought to contact him. I think that'd be great because
I know who he is. My thing is this, mine's an experiment. What I'm doing here, I've been doing automotive TV for 25, 30 years, something like that. And I've always been kind of waiting for somebody to discover me and have a show. No. And I just do the Barrett Jackson. That's it. Nothing else. I'm like, what the hell? It's kind of weird, So with that said, I either don't go yo enough or have any tattoos on my face. I don't know what it is. So, but the car gets the voice. That's all I care about. And YouTube allows me to skip the knucklehead career stallers. I mean, network executives, and just go right around them. Go right into the, and I love that. So the beauty of that is, so what I do on my stuff, it's not, I won't say it's punk rock, but there's no production value, nothing. And in fact, TV to hold up a thing like this, a paper prop, is strike 12. You scan it in, and then there's some effect, something like that. I hold it up, and I put a marker. Hey, here's what it says. And people love it. There's nothing wrong with that. I have model cars. I say, hey, the AMT Mach 1. Here it is, right here. We're checking out. And by the way, did you know there were 2 variations on the box art? Yeah, same kit, different box art. Why would they do that? Well, because on this box, they say Boss 429, but in the kit, there's a camera. They screwed up, so they re-released it with this. So Steve, that's too obtuse. No. Yeah. So, so FTV, pardon the French, and just go to YouTube, baby. And it's thrilling. It's wonderful.
Well, I'm with you on YouTube because you can do what you want to do, and your channel's growing like mad.
And one thing too that I encountered, I used to do a show on DIY channel called Classic Car Restoration. This is 15, 20 years ago, and there was a Van Halen poster in somebody's garage, and they made him take it down. They were afraid that somebody somewhere would say, hey, that's a copyrighted image. You owe us money, or you can't run that show. And the producers were so freaked out and worried about things like that, that it was almost paranoia and silly. And on YouTube, as you know, there's a thing called fair use. If I want to take a Van Halen song and use it in my video, I can. Here's the thing. I have to stop it and say, okay, here's where Eddie misses, or he breaks a string on his guitar. Okay, keep going. And then stop. Right. You have to break it down in an educational fashion. That is fair use. Right. But if you use Van Halen, whatever revenue you might or might not make on the video, they'll get, not you. But the beauty of YouTube is that it's if it's transformative and educational, you can use an old AMT box for a Mustang or whatever it is right here, and nobody's going to say, hey, MPC wants 10 cents. Well, they're defunct. They're not even around. But it's sometimes decision makers think a little too much.
Well, I'm with you on that. That's the thing. Of course, everybody watches ViceGrip Garage, and now he's went to TV. And I just really think, I don't know if you know ViceGrip Garage or not.
Yeah, you replaced me actually at Roadworthy Rescue. Is kind of that theme is kind of.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I ain't gonna talk about him no more.
Nothing wrong with that.
He's out of here.
Yeah, more power. I wonder why he's doing that. He's got millions of subscribers.
That's my question.
Do that. I don't understand that. He doesn't need the exposure, but I'm just, hey, what do I don't know. I know.
Well, they said, I talked to Flat Broke Garage, said that, now they got scouts that go out to find cars for him to actually own. So that's just somebody else you have to pay.
Yeah, it is. It is. I will say this: when we did Roadkill's Junkyard Gold, and again, I'm thankful to David Freiberger and the people at Motor Trend with the vision. Before there's this whole merger thing that happened, and that's the wheels came off because it was people from like sports channels that were then put into control, and they didn't understand cars. I had a guy say to me one time, Steve, we're not sure our viewers care about what's cool about finding a Mustang Boss 302 in a junkyard. And by the way, what's a Boss 302? I'm like, what? So that's a thing, and TV is it's for gumming. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's pulp, which is fine, but we can do better.
I think that's every redneck car loving guy wants to find a 66 Corvette in somebody's garage that's never been touched for $300. That's the
and one thing too I will say is that some people say, why don't you go and like fire it up or get it going? And I always say crawl, walk, run. And this is the junkyard crawl. It may become the junkyard walk at some point, but at this point in time, I do this. All I can do is talk about the car. If I suddenly start to try and get the jumper cables and spin that flathead over that's been in the junkyard for 12 years, I'm going to ruin the engine for one. It's going to score everything inside of it. It's not a favor to the engine.
No, I think.
And beyond that, why? It's like a dive on the Titanic. No need to raise it to have fun. As long as the sub doesn't leak, and you have a good tour guide. There's no reason to fire it up. That's my little niche. It's done. It's just basically just tell me about the car, give the car a voice, and then move on. As soon as you start touching it, you're burning calories and money. I'm
with you. I love the junkyard. I don't think you need to change anything. I mean, and anybody, I know a lot of folks. I mean, you've got a huge channel, which is great, but just the info that you give on this stuff, I just love it. I
mean, if somebody wants to go and buy that car and grab it, in fact, that happened. There's a fellow, Pole Barn Garage. There's also a fellow. He bought the Silent Chevelle. Fellow in Texas, went from Texas, the dry, rust-free state of Texas, and God bless him, drove to New Hampshire or Massachusetts and bought a rusty Chevelle, brought it back to Texas, got it running again, and made a video channel out of that experience. So it was cool. He bought the car from Bernardston Auto Wrecking, supported them. It was like a few $100, and he took a New England rust monster and made it drivable in Texas, where the fact that it's Swiss cheese and full of holes is way cooler than a rust-free example. So, God bless him. And with that said, it's it's good when people just engage with cars. And it's true. If I was Bill Gates, I would build a whole fleet of altered wheelbase funny cars. This is my favorite stuff, is these things here, these like funny cars.
Well, now you've got a video or a book or something. I know that they talked about where you did the altered, and I've watched some of that, and you give people step-by-step instructions on how to do that.
Yeah, it is true. I've built a few funny cars over the years. The Wilshire Shaker Nova. In fact, this is one of the videos right here. And this, I don't try to sell these anymore, whatever it is, but you can, on my YouTube channel, you can watch this for free. And basically it shows how we built this Dart, took it from a regular Slant 6 car and turned it into an altered wheelbase car. And then the Nova is a running, driving funny car. And again, these are, to me, the altered wheelbase funny cars of 64 4, 5, 6, 7 were the real funny cars, if you will. But that was the first time that big engines, exotic fuels, and door slammers were melted together. Very exciting. And the factories were behind that stuff. So you had some crazy stuff. So I like that kind of thing. But it is true. Yeah, everybody has something, but I like old altered wheelbase funny. Cars for the street. It's cool to go 8s in a car like that, but there were death machines in many cases. I would go 11 or something like that, no problem. But you get into the 8s and 7s, and those things become really lousy airplanes. With a mile high stance, but they're cool. A lot of attitude in them.
Well, is that not actually where the term funny car come from, with the altered wheelbase, and then now they got the all plastic cars,
Yeah. In 1965, Chrysler did a fleet of 11, Dodge and Plymouths, and they basically had the rear axle move forward 15, the front 10 inches. It looked funny. And, I think it was Buster Cat. Somebody at NHRA, Bernie Partridge, said, that's a funny looking Mopar. And they were also outlawed. The NHRA says, no, get those out of here. And it was at the Winter Nationals in 1965 at Pomona. So they went to the AHRA, which is a smaller version of the NHRA, in Phoenix. And they became a hit. And then quickly they grew out and just became crazy match racers with hydrazine and blowers. And then, of course, 66, Mercury does the flip top thing and just really lays down the blueprint for today's funny car, the fiberglass tube frame car, which is cool. But building a streetable replica of that, getting in and getting out of a fiberglass flip top, I don't know how you do that, but it's all good. Drag racing is
that's the thing though. All the car companies, especially like in NASCAR and in drag racing, man, they were in it heavy. I mean, the car companies was in it heavy. I mean, I've talked to some NASCAR guys from back in the day, and they said we could go in there and say, hey, we want the next 10 cars, and they just load them up and take them to them. But I mean, them days are gone. I think the stuff they're racing now, I mean, I guess it's just store-bought stuff. It's not as exciting to me to not have a factory car.
I'm with you. I will say that, I mean, it is true that, Dino Don Nicholson versus Sox and Martin versus maybe Seton Shaker for, a Ford Mopar Chevy shootout at Milan Dragway, that thing. I mean, there's still, the NHRA's Superstock classes, the drag packs, the Challenger and the Cobra Jet Mustangs. So it's kind of cool that we have that. And I will say this too, that, I was born in 64. In 1974, I remember me and my mom sitting in our Volvo station wagon.
You were so cool. You were so cool.
Yeah. Well, my parents weren't car people at all. My dad was an optical physicist, whatever that is. No, lenses and lasers. That was his thing. My mom was a graphic designer. My brother's an eye surgeon in Indiana, and I'm a car geek. You know what I mean? But I love what I do. But I remember sitting there in 74, waiting to get our 5 gallons of gas during the OPEC crunch. Remember that whole thing? And it blew over. It was political is what it was, which is okay. The world goes around. But with that said, I remember in 84, I'm 20 years old, and the Mustang finally gets a 4-barrel carburetor, the GT in 83, 4-barrel to the 2-barrel, and then fuel injection in 86. Oh, no, the sky's falling. But I would never have imagined the Hemi would come back.
Yeah.
The Camaros, the GT 500 in 2005 with 500 horsepower, and these today, it's pretty amazing. The Demon, the drag pack, all that stuff. And I'm a Mopar guy at the core, but I love them all. I really do. My joke is that the only car I won't have is there's no way I'll ever have another Renault. If you know what I'm trying to say.
I'm with you on that.
I love them. Citroen and blah, blah. But with that said, the modern muscle cars are pretty amazing.
I mean, honestly, and what is the LS, man? Everybody's putting LS in, and that's making some power.
And there's a 6.6 liter LS just came out, and Ford even got in the program with a push rod that with the what they call it, the Gorilla or something like the Godzilla, whatever it is, this big crazy push rod V8. So it's for trucks, but they trickle down in the cars. And the electric thing, I got to say, I appreciate it, and I love how Teslas are marketed as tire smokers with ludicrous mode, and they'll haul ass. I mean, man,
I guarantee you.
But I say to myself, all those people who have street parking in the city, they're going to run a cable out overnight and charge the car, and the cable's going to be there in the morning. You know what I mean? It's just, we're not there. The infrastructure, I always say that the word Edsel and electric car both start with the letter E. Just saying.
Yeah. We know the jokes about the Edsel too, because of the nose and all that.
It was overthought, overprocessed, and a flop. But it was the next big thing. I mean, electric's cool, but we're not there. But a lot of
they're pushing them over here, and we struggle to keep up with electricity just with our air cons. But there's no infrastructure here hardly at all. So this person drove one from Sydney to Brisbane. So I don't know if you know.
Sure.
About it, but so that's like about 800-900 k's, I think it is. And you type it all in, so it tells you where to stop to charge it. So there's a couple of little random little spots to charge it. And so he went to the first one, and it cost him $45 or something. And then he went to the next one, which was actually like just in a paddock with a big generator sitting behind it.
Right, burning diesel.
Yeah. So that one, he charged there. I don't know, cost him another $30 or $40. So he left there, got 12 k's down the road. It said, no, go back. You're not going to have enough to make it. So he had to drive back to that charge station, and then he filled it up.
Yeah.
And he ended up, by the time he got to Brisbane, it had cost him $120, I think, or $130. And he'd spent 3 hours in the charge stations. And it would have cost me about $150 in my Mercedes.
Yeah.
And I would have had to stop once for 5 seconds. So, the infrastructure is nowhere near ready for it.
Yeah. I'm all for clean air. And frankly, we've done some pretty nasty things to the environment as people in the last 200 years. We could try and be as good as we can, because 200 years from now, it may not be so good. Whatever. Clean air is good, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it is. But with that said, remember parking meters? You put a coin in the thing, you put a parking meter, that kind of thing. Well, when every sidewalk in every city has a built-in plug for your car that's weatherproof, winterproof, then you start selling electric cars like they're the big new thing. We're doing this backwards, which is kind of weird. I mean, every big movement has a lot of hype to it. I get it. But at the same time, the sky's not falling. And as long as they're still selling brand new trucks with 7-year notes, there's going to be gas for 7 years. Can you imagine in 3 years' time, if, okay, no more gas, folks, go buy electric. You have 5 years left on your pickup truck payment, class action lawsuit, anyone? Yeah. So, I mean, the gasoline thing is here, and cars are so clean now.
That's what I think.
Emissions-wise. Yeah, it's not a problem, but I get it. It's interesting, and, we got to remember back in the first 15 years, the automobile, steam, gas, and electric were the big three. And electrics mostly were for ladies who didn't know how to fire up an old engine and didn't want to build a fire in the Stanley steamer. So it's not new. It's just the batteries. The other thing, too, where's that lithium going to go? The junkyard crawl in 30 years, are we going to be looking at piles of lithium batteries illegally dumped in the woods? And that's a weird one, too. Where do you get rid of that? So a lot of questions haven't been answered. So I'm like, I don't know.
It's political. It's political.
Unintended.
Yeah, it's political. That's what it is. Everybody wants to be on the, look good. Oh, look what we're doing. We're saving the world. And then when you look at where the electricity comes from, you're not saving anything.
Natural gas. And coal. Yeah.
But cars nowadays are they are clean. And how, that's the thing. Back when we were kids, I had a 67, I still got it, 67 Plymouth Barracuda, 340, 4-speed. I might have had 300 horses. And I'm sure that thing was just, it's a gas guzzler out the tailpipe.
Yeah.
And now you can buy a V6 Mustang with over 300 horses with air conditioning, power steering, the whole 9 yards. And they can't sit and tell me that them things are not clean. They are. I mean, they're clean as much emissions as on them. And how they're getting power out of them, I do not understand it.
It is cool. It is amazing. For as we know, for the 70s, Detroit was playing catch up. The Clean Air Act of 1970 basically was the beginning of, hey, Detroit, clean up your act. And by 1979, CAFE, corporate average fuel economy, I think it was 18 miles per gallon. They had to take everything from the Vega to the Caprice, added up, divided out, and it had to be 19 miles per gallon. So they had to build a bunch of Vegas to crush the thirsty ones that people wanted to buy. And now I think CAFE is 62 miles per gallon. Or something like that. It's like, and they keep cranking it up, saying, Detroit, make it happen. We don't care.
Yeah.
But they're doing it, which is amazing. And we have 0 to 60 in 5 seconds or quicker, or almost 7 seconds. 0 to 60 is a minivan now. Which is cool. It used to be that was a big deal. So I would say anything with 300 horsepower will get your attention. So I don't even know what I do with 600 horsepower, to be honest with you, in a new car.
I'm with you. That's like Chris Jacobs. He come driving in a Demon. And I'm thinking, how many horsepower is that thing? And I'm like, what do you use that?
Yeah. But the fact is we can buy them, which is cool. Some people say, they don't make them like they used to. Well, yeah, true. But I don't know. The good old days are kind of right now. Because I remember the 80s when, the turbo, remember the Charger 2.2?
I got one. I got a Shelby. I got a Shelby Charger 2.2.
Not crapping on them, but I'm just saying when the Charger 2.2 came out, they actually said 0 to 50 in 9 seconds, 0 to 60 in 11, but 0 to 50. Like they actually changed from 60 to 50. They did that.
Make it sound better.
What kind of a shell game is that? You know what I mean? It was that weak. And meanwhile, I was a Chrysler guy. So I love them all, but I have one tattoo, and there it is there.
There you go. Cat pack. There you go.
Cat pack. And when they bought it back,
I got the little thing right on the wall.
Right. Yeah. I'm a Dodge spokesperson at times, and they have me do videos. And Tim Kaniskis paid for this, which is thank you, Tim. But anyway, But in the 70s, it was a thing where, or the 80s, I should say, front wheel drive, downsizing. Remember Chrysler's K car? They went all K car all the time. It saved Chrysler, but they stayed there too long. And by 1989, they were starting to suck wind, and the LH cars kind of saved the day. And then when they merged with Mercedes, we got the rear-wheel drive platform, and things took off.
That really made a difference.
Yeah. The rear-wheel drive Mopars are awesome, and the Hemi came back. Yeah. And the whole marketing, the self-aware, the Hemi thing, at first the emblems were that big. Remember those old things, Hemi Magnum? Remember it said Magnum? Oh, yeah. They would have been sure if the H word strong enough to be used on its own, and now it's Hemi everything, which is cool. It's a legend, and so the good old days are kind of right now. The self-reflection that's going on now, I never would have dreamt we'd see. Bosses, GT500s, ZL1 Camaros, it's cool. And in Australia, the Ford Hemi 6, well, the dual overhead cam 6, what they call the Brabus, what do they call it? The Barbo. It's a Ford inline 6 with a turbo.
Ford, the Barra.
Yeah, those are crazy. I'm kind of bummed we don't get them here. But
I had one. I had a Ute. I just sold at auction recently, and that was 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
But you said you had slant 6 Chryslers down there that was Hemis too. Did you not?
No, there's a slant 6, and then there's a Hemi 6-cylinder, a 245, and the 265 was the good one, and that came out with triple Weber carbies on it.
The Hemi 6-pack.
Yeah, love that one of them. That'd be so much fun, would it not?
But they were the fastest car down the quarter mile. Fastest production car down the quarter mile was a Charger with the Hemi 265 in it.
Yeah, and the RT and all the branding. It's funny.
Yeah, that's what it was called, an RT.
Yeah. There's a magazine. I'm not still around.
E46 or something they called it, or something.
Yeah. There's a magazine.
They're worth like ridiculous money. Like, I don't know. Probably $500,000.
Yeah. Oh Lord. Yeah, and it's cool too. In Australia, there's a whole. It's like learning to have a cousin you didn't know about. Like the Ford Falcon GT, the HOs, 351s, four-door. Those are cool cars. They have all the same, eyeball, all the image that a GTO has, but it's a whole different creature. I'm like, wow. I remember when I watched Mad Max and I saw the V8 Interceptor, that car. I didn't realize what that was. It was a Ford Falcon.
That's a two-door coupe, like a XB. I think that's like a 76.
Right.
He said they're junk.
I didn't say it.
No. Yeah. Copperhead. He said they're junk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had that. Well, back when I was a kid, I had a Holden, a 4-door Holden, because 4-door, like, I don't know, 2 doors aren't that big over here. Right. So I had a 4-door Holden, and my mate that lived around the corner that I'd known since I was little, he went and bought one of those XB coupes, and I used to look down at it like, it's rubbish. Like, you can't see out of it. It's big. It's like a big boat. It's like slow, And I had this Holden that used to beat him all the time, and my Holden, like, probably worth $20,000 now, it would be, and his would be worth probably $200,000.
Yeah, right. Isn't that funny how that works? Well, the Trans Ams, like, the Pontiac Trans Am in 69, 70, 71, 2, 3, 4 Super Duties, those are cool. Yeah. And then suddenly the disco era comes in, the 403s, 220 horsepower. But those things are the big ones. People want them, which I get. We used to laugh at them. We call it disco Trans Am, because, it was a Saturday Night Fever Flashmobile. But I get it. They're cool. They don't have to be fast, but I know what you mean, the HO. But I remember when I saw that movie, that primered black car that Mel Gibson was driving, I thought that was a 72 Ford Torino that the movie makers sprayed black and gave this fake blow with the switch. I didn't realize it was an Australian car. There's a whole industry down there. And so, in the value.
The yellow ones that are in that movie, the yellow ones, the Interceptors.
Yeah.
Or no, what are they called? The Pursuit ones, the yellow, blue, and red ones. Yeah, that's the same car.
Okay.
But that's the 4-door version.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen the first bit where there's that other flat black car at the start with the crazy dude that's off his.
Yeah.
But that's the Holden.
Okay.
That's the Holden version. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. They smashed it or something like that. It was terrible. I remember they.
Yeah, him and his girlfriend were in there and they rolled it or whatever. Yeah. They were the ones that they were all chasing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the Holden. That was what I had. I had one of them.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, there's a guy here in Hiawassee actually building one of the Mad Max cars. He's got the car. They got a whole kit and everything for them things now. I don't know how he got it over here. I guess they sold a few over here or shipped them over here or what. But I don't know. It's kind of a cool looking car. But like I said, it looked like the Torino.
Yeah. And the stylists, a lot of times, because GM's owned by an American company, quite often the styling themes would be imposed on other countries. Mm-hmm. And that's why those shapes and things would be seen there. In fact, the Plymouth, The Chrysler Valiant in Australia is a Dodge Dart,
Yeah.
but with a very unique front. You know, the fenders, the grille, the firewall is a little different for right-hand drive, but it's interesting. But also the local content laws. You guys have Borg Warner rear axles and things that we just don't see. And again, my buddy Dave Mahoney he brought a Ute to the States one time, and it was a Dodge, it was our Chrysler Valiant Ute with a Hemi 245. It wasn't a 265, but it had an inline with a 2-barrel carburetor, and it was kind of cool. It got eyeballs everywhere he went, you know. But it was
they're Ute mad. We're Ute mad. Everything, if there's everything's a Ute.
Yeah,
like there's just about every car you can get. There's a Ute version of it. So
why is that? I mean, El Camino's here. We don't even make them anymore, but I guess it'd be El Camino.
I don't know why they were never popular over there. I don't know. We just love Utes. They're handy. Like you throw your dog in the back and you throw your rubbish and you just, you know, especially when you don't have kids, it's just you and your missus and you know, I don't know. So they used to advertise them as like take your girlfriend out to the pictures on Saturday and then take her to work on Monday. Like that's how they used to advertise it.
You need to come to America, man. I know you're trying to get here because we got the same vehicle, sort of. It's called a Corvette. It's got 2 seats.
We got one of them. Yeah, that's horrible. I hate it. I do. The wife's got it up for sale, our Corvette, because I don't like driving it.
Yeah.
Too hard. I'm getting too old to get in and out of it.
You know, one thing
I pop 3 discs out me backside every time I try to get into it.
I hear you. I got to say, a lot of, you know, I don't know. I'm 58, and I start to think like these Ferraris and things that are just like, I feel like I need to wear a cape when I drive something like that. You know, like Superman. Like it's like, what do I do? Who drive the? You know, those cars should be owned by kids, seniors in high school and kids in college, because your life suits that car, but you can't afford them. So who buys them? Older people. You know, but I don't have a cape, so I can't buy one of those Lamborghinis. You know, or I don't have the money. You know. But at the same time, I appreciate supercars, but I don't begin to understand where you can begin to use something like that without going straight to jail. That's just me, you know.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, that's funny. I've got an '82 Corvette, which is really pretty. We was up in Pigeon Forge. Me and my wife, we was cruising down. You know, just me and her went up there, and we was going down the sidewalks just right beside the, you know, you're just right there on the sidewalk. Yeah, people just covered up, and this kid says, "Dad, how come all the old people get the cool cars?" And my wife looked over and said, "How do you feel now, old man?"
Yeah, so, right.
Can we save our money?
You say to the kid, "You'll see." That's that works. You know what I mean? Because you know, I guess I'm happy to say that, you know, I was able to as the 10th owner of, I had a Hemi Charger, a '68 Hemi Charger back in 1987 that I bought for $10,000, which is probably sold it for 16, but it was in primer, but it was a running driving car. But that car cured me of the need to have a show-winning car, because if it got a scratch or something, it was in primer. Mine was. I don't have the gene that requires perfection, because either own your car or your car owns you. And you know, an 11-point, you know, 101-point Ram Air GTO is cool, but man, it's a nuisance to own. I'd rather have a car that's kind of just a little rough. I don't mind surface. Structural rust is no go, but I love patina in cars with just, I call it a Texas suntan. And I'm so thankful that, you know, patina, it's a worn out term, but cars don't have to be pretty to be desirable. I like cars with original paint, little faded, fine with me. A little bit denting is okay. No structural rust, no holes, but I don't mind a car that has some life and some wear. I'd rather have an original, you know, GTO, whatever, you fill in the blank, than a restored piece.
You can enjoy it, man. You can enjoy it. But yeah, you sit in the parking lot.
Restored cars are cool too, but sometimes once they're done, you're like, oh crap, now I got to drive this. No, you know, I don't know. It's weird.
Now you're an avid model collector. You collect models, or do you just build them? Or
I do a bit of both. You know, the funny thing is, you know, this is kind of weird, but if you're a model guy, you'll realize AMT just brought this out. This is the Mustang Fastback. Right, for years, the 2+2 body hasn't been available, and that's a big deal. This is the MPC version. It's not the same kit. They're very similar, but AMT and MPC were rivals in the kit market, like Ford or General Motors back in the day. But so I collect old ones and the new ones. But the new ones, they're reissuing the old kit. So be careful before you spend $300 on an old kit. Make sure it's not about to get re-released for $30. Just saying. So, but I do collect them. But Johan is my primary. Those things are so rare. A company called Johan, like AMT, MPC, Revell, Monogram, IMC, Hawk, that whole thing. But Johan was a guy named John Hanley, not Johan. It's Johan. And from about 1959 through 79, they did some really cool Mopar kits, all kinds of stuff, Superbird, Roadrunner. And those kits today are they're not being reproduced because the tooling was scrapped. So those are like $500, and I will collect those, and I'll build them from time to time. And like, I'll even, I love old funny cars. This is basically an altered wheelbase. This is an AMT 65 Barracuda. I put a Hemi in it and stuff like that. Kind of did it up like an old match racer, steering front wheels, A100 axle. But I'll build these things. I'll take a couple months, and it's ugly on purpose with this stuff because a lot of those old funnies were nasty, But this is an actual 1965 AMT, about a $200 kit. And I built it because you can't get it otherwise. And compared to putting a roller cam in my Hemi back in the day, this is pennies compared to that, right? So the big ones, the little ones, they're both interesting. And and I just finished this thing up. This is my my Dick Brandon Thunderbolt car, and I just like doing the details. Got to have a camera in there, with carburetors and stuff. I'm trying to get the focus, and I even take the wheels. I paint them and stuff so they're more realistic. But so this is the MPC.
How long did it take you to build that car?
About a month. And I paint everything. And the graphics, the only thing I don't have an inkjet printer, or whatever they call it, an Alps printer. Those they're out of production. They're hard to get. But printing graphics, I can't begin to paint letters on a car like that. I can't. I can spray it, I can mask it, but the graphics are, to me, the fun. So if there's no decals available either from the aftermarket or pre-existing kit, it's a barrier to building the model for me.
I don't know. I got a boy. I got him kind of started. Well, he started we got a airplane model, and he glued it. He really glued it. He glued it a lot. So I don't know, but it's been a while. Normally, when I build the little cars, I always end with my fingerprints in the car.
Yeah, right. Well, one thing I discovered, like in 1980, is cyanoacrylate super glue is Zap-A-Gap, and I haven't used tester cement since 1980 because let dry overnight. What? That's what it says in the instructions, because that stuff, it's like it melts the parts together. But super glue is instantaneous, and you can snap it apart within a few minutes if you don't like what you did. But super glue really made all the difference to me for building. And cyanoacrylate super glue.
So it holds pretty good. It stays.
Oh yeah, it's kind of forever. There's even a thing, if you can't wait 2 minutes, there's a thing called zip kicker. And his little puff of smoke comes off it, and it doesn't affect the paint, which is cool. You can actually, it used to be you had to scrape the paint off the joints and then glue it together, wait for the testers to dry, it would run and crap. And the super glue, you should scrape the paint, but then the super glue can go on there. It doesn't cause the paint to run if you don't rub it. If you let it dry, it's nothing, no problem. So it's.
I remember being a kid, man. You go to, I guess it would be Sky City back here. I don't know what it was, but it was Sky City back in the day. And you'd walk into the toy section. Yeah. It'd be a whole aisle of nothing but model cars. It'd be like walking to the supermarket with cereal now. You know how cereal's just. Yeah. But now there's everything's online. I guess you have to get.
Yeah. Which is okay. I will say the model industry is enjoying a resurgence. One thing that happened, like the beauty of this, right? The box art on that. How cool is that? Mach 1, and the illustration shows pretty much what you get in the box. And on this side, here's all the bits and pieces. There's that camera Ford right there. You can kind of see that. The box art was awesome. Well, in the mid 1970s, Jimmy Carter, president for a few years there was a whole push
for Georgia. He's a Georgia boy.
Yeah, right. The peanut farmer, right?
Yeah, the peanut farmer.
Yeah, but a whole push toward truth in advertising, in packaging, especially stuff sold to kids. So the days of box art, if the model inside didn't actually make smoke and fire, you had to have a picture of the model on the box, which instantly made them like, a picture of a built model car. They kind of suck. But that was one of the things that really killed the model business in the late 70s when kids started playing Pac-Man too, video games also. But it's back. The funny thing is, there's a company called Mobius, and of course, Round 2, and they're re-releasing this brand new kits we've never had. 67, 89, 70 Chargers that are beautiful with Danas and 8 3/4 and Hemis and 440s. Revell's done a great job, and Mobius, they do an altered wheelbase Plymouth. The Golden Commandos, there's never been an altered wheelbase model that was more than a toy. So the Golden Age, and they do Hudsons, they do F-Series pickup trucks, Mobius. Check them out. They're very good. Model King. So, it's people, they call us rejuveniles, people 35 to 135 who buy these things.
Hey, I got, I'm on Facebook, and I'm sure you are too. I got friends that, they build them models, and it's just amazing to me, the detail they put in them. And
And out of the box, they're better than they've ever been. There's the ability to create tooling and engrave parts and pieces, and even 3D printing is crazy. Now, the only problem with that, if you can actually take a digital image of something and tell the computer to print it one layer at a time. It's weird. You get these weird little sticks, and it was like it's almost like a groove from the bottom of the ocean. But 3D printing is interesting. The only bummer with that is you get terraces. The body has little tiny lines in it, and it's in its infancy. But if you can take a picture of a thing, you can make a model of it now, which is cool. But it's 5 years from now, it'll be really cool because there won't be the lines. You have to shave them down. It's kind of a bummer. And it's also kind of a resin. It's not quite like styrene, but 3D printing is a cool thing. In fact, the wheels on these things, these are 3D printed, these mags in the back.
Oh, really?
Like torque thrust, but these are 3D printed resin and with paint, obviously, because they're kind of like yellow otherwise. But, it's cool. Models aren't over by any stretch,
Yeah. But that's the thing, all car guys, man. I mean, they got car. I've got all kinds of stuff. If I see something like this is I don't know what it would be. It's actually it was supposed to be a red line, but
it's Hot Wheels. Yeah, red line. Yep,
red line, and then I got a Barracuda here somewhere. Just I bought at yard sales. It just that's the red line.
The original issue. There they are. The Spectre Flames.
Yep. And that car's worth quite a bit of money if it wasn't like it was, But
it just goes to show that we value the things we enjoy, and even like I saw all this junk everywhere, but even Matchbox, which was kind of like kind of staid and kind of boring. This is their Studebaker Wagoneer with a little thing. Well, who knew that Corgi did one too?
Yeah,
Corgis also had a roof, but they did it differently. It had a little. I'm going backwards here, but but it's cool. These are both Studebaker Wagoneers. I'm trying to put them here. Yeah. But one's a Corgi and one's a Matchbox, so they're similar but not the same. So just the variations on a real GTO. The world of toys has just as much weirdness and interest.
That gets the kids started in it too. That's a good thing. I was down there. I IMC'd the Emerald Coast Cruise in down at Panama City. I just got back. I love the kids down there, man. They were a lot of kids involved in it, and then we had O'Reilly's actually sponsored the thing. So I had a stack of coloring books. I mean. I had a case of coloring books, and I'd hand them things out to them little fellers, and they just get them interested.
Absolutely.
I know it's expensive being the cars, but it keeps you out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and just starting with little Matchboxes, or there's a guy named Mark Trostel, who's the head of design at SRT. Vipers. He's a model builder. He builds model cars. Still. So and that's how he started. So I say tomorrow's aerospace engineers are today's model car builders. And it starts somewhere. I remember when I was a kid, in the instructions in these, he would say, starter motor, blower drive, differential. On the instruction, would show you what the part was. That's why I first learned what a generator, or an alternator, or a carburetor. Models are a great entree or entry to the world of design.
I've got to ask you. Okay, now your Steve Maggs T-shirt that you wear. It's a Hemi. Explain that to me. What is that? I don't know what that. I said, what is it?
Well, basically, what it is when I was in California, I had a buddy of mine, Richard Lefebvre. He built funny cars. If you read Hot Rod, you'd see we go up to his shop in Seattle, and one time he had a plastic Hemi that is actually a Pierre Products. I'm trying to get this thing to focus. I don't know, but Pierre Products made these plastic Hemis. Richard, he had a Hilborn, so I laid on the floor in my shop thing, put the plastic Hemi on me, put the Hilborn. I said, take a picture. I want that for my business card, and here it is, my business card. So it's from that I said, let's make that my logo. And the only thing is, people say, hey, where can I buy one of those shirts, Steve? I made about 20 of them, and I use them in a junkyard. And the thing is, I realized if you put this in the washing machine, it's not color fast. And I don't want to sell shirts that unravel, turn to crap on people. So
well, I buy one.
Yeah, I don't have a merch thing yet, but that's the story of it. It's my business card turned into a shirt. If you will.
That's cool. I wonder what that was. I thought, well, what the heck? But yeah, you could sell that. I ain't no doubt, because I know everybody like that one.
My favorite engine is the Hilborn injected Hemi, just the meanest, wide, tall, just awesome. The 427 Camry from Ford is a pretty close second. That's a great looking engine too. Small block Chevy, they're all right, but I mean the backbone of hot rodding. But the Hemis, to me, it's royalty.
That's the only thing about the LS motor. It's not a pretty motor to me. It's just
soulless. They're soulless, but it's beautiful what they do.
They're small and make power, and but we were down there at Stingray Chevrolet. They're a big dealer with that. They were down at the show, and they've got all anything you want for LS. Plug and play, you're done. And it takes a lot of work out of it. But still, like I say, that Hemi just is beautiful. I mean, even down there, I think you can still get a lot of parts for the 331. I think they're still making a lot of parts for the 331 still.
Yeah, Hotheads, I think, in Mena, Arkansas, I think they're still very involved with Hemi stuff. And the new Hemi, the 3rd gen, I mean, people, that's not a Hemi, it's a Hemi if you take it apart. The chambers are still hemispherical. They have a little bit of flat on each side, but the valves still go in toward the center. They have double rockers. They got cross-bolted mains. That's a Hemi. It's a little smaller, but, they can be as big as 6.4 liters. I don't know that.
Okay, now the poly motor, the poly motor, it is a semi-Hemi, right?
It is. It's They're interesting. With the deal with that was that Chrysler wanted to take advantage of canted valves, wherein there's a little. When they open, they get away from the cylinder wall, so they're not shrouded where they sit there, so the flow doesn't get shrouded like a small block Chevy, frankly. But it's helpful. But with that said, the double rockers of the true Hemis were expensive. So Chrysler, let's have the polysphere, but make it so that a single rocker shaft can take intake and exhaust rockers and get away from that second shaft and the stands and all the complexity and the size. So it's better breathing, but the only problem with the poly is that the intake port is so close to water, you're stuck with its relatively small size. If you enlarge it, you hit water. That's the thing.
That's not cool.
But the big block Chevy takes the same idea. It's just to orient the valves so they're sort of kicked a little bit like that. So they move as they open, they're away from the wall of the cylinder bore, so they're not shrouded by the wall being right next to it. And the difference is between 10 and 11. You know what I'm saying? They're both good. Some engines are terrible way back when, but most engines are decent. And the Hemi was kind of an overkill thing, but it was hats off for them doing it. And when you take that and modify it, well, it has potential built in. But
yeah, I'm with you on that. Now let me ask this: small block Mopar. Which is your pick? Which one?
Well,
on the old one, not this new stuff. I'm talking about the old.
Yeah, I would have said 346 pack, and then I kind of realized a 360 has got 20 more cubic inches. I mean, I'll take 360 with 346 pack stuff on top would be nice, or a D-Dart motor, 1965. The 275 horse, the 273 D-Dart motor. They made like 10 of them, not a lot, but yeah, the small block Mopar is a good little engine. Yeah, they're good. Give me a 360. It's the 350 Chevy of the Mopar world.
I'm hung on the 340s. Of course, I'm fixing to build a 340. We're fixing to build another.
They're cool too.
And with them, you got the Magnum.
Okay, great.
You got the Magnum motors now, and they're
they're okay. Yeah, they're okay. The thing with the Magnums, I mean, to me, I'm kind of stuck in what was the root task of the engine. They're pickup truck engines, nothing wrong with that. They're great. They're better. The AMC type, the valve gear on them and stuff like that. They're cool engines, but I don't, there's many engines I grab before I'd go to a Magnum, but they're cool. There's nothing wrong with them. I'd go for a Gen 3 Hemi before a Magnum, clearly. But with that said, the Magnums were interesting in the barrel ram, that crazy barrel ram that had a 2-barrel on top, but the runners were actually, if you stretched them out, they were like a foot long, a foot and a half. It was a ram-tuned intake, but in a barrel to fit under the hood with an air cleaner. Weird. If you look at a Dakota with a V6 or a V8, the barrel ram is a strange.
It's an odd-looking rig.
Yeah, but it's ram tuning. It's packaging under the hood instead of having out each side of the engine like the 60, 61-2. It's just in one ball.
I love that cross ram, man. That is beautiful. I mean, that big old carburetor sitting on the side, absolutely beautiful. We're fixing, like I said, we were dirt track racers. And of course, Copperhead, he's a dirt tracker right up. He actually won dang state and all that stuff. I never done that, but we had a Dodge Dart, $69. Well, it's actually a 57 Plymouth. Let's see, how was it? I guess it was a 57 Plymouth frame.
Okay. Full frame of ladder. Yeah, put a body on it like that kind of thing.
Yeah, we built that car, but anyway, and
tough as nails that way.
But what we did, and that's something that we took a 60 Chevrolet dump truck torsion bar and put on the right side.
Yeah.
Made all the difference in the world.
Big around, right?
Oh yeah, man. So that, and Chevrolet guys here had no idea, with torsion bar and all that. So actually had the 60 Chevrolet dump truck torsion bar on the right side, and
that's a good point. 60 through 63 Chevy trucks were torsion bars all the way up to the 5-tonners. And there's an optional beam, but it's true. Like Chevy pickups had torsion bars up front, which is it's not just a Chrysler thing. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But it's pretty interesting, all that stuff is. But anyway, I've held you up. I told you wasn't going
to. Were you in that?
You've got to look forward to coming up soon when you go dirt tracking.
Yeah,
is that you?
That's me.
Ow. Did you see stars, or was it okay? Was it like that?
They interviewed me when I got out. I was a little bit doughy.
Yeah.
Doughy.
Yeah, I was a little bit.
It's a tough looking. Is that a transaxle in the back of that, or what's the reason?
That's a I don't know what they call that. That's That's a Commodore. So that's like
okay. I'm looking at the back.
IRS rear end.
Yeah, I got you. I thought
that's the bottom. The motor's up the top. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
That's about cool. I don't know. That's about 3 meters off the ground.
Wow.
So what's that? 10 foot off the ground. I am there.
Wow. Did you win?
I was winning when I did it.
Was the car rebuildable?
Nah. Well, kinda. I took the cage and stuff out.
Yeah.
And like the motor, but I put new bearings in it and everything. But it did a lot of damage. Yeah.
That hurt.
The shell was destroyed.
Yeah.
But the cage did a job. Here you are.
Oh yeah, that went. I think it went 2 times side over side, then dug in and went up vertical and did like a pirouette and a spin and then landed and ended up on its roof and caught fire and all sorts happened on that one.
So you was doing
the wife said you're not racing that class ever again. Yeah.
You're done.
Not in that class. Yeah, she said no. Go back to the real fast ones. They're better.
Oh, okay.
That's like a street car turned into a race car. Yeah. Whereas I used to race super late models, which are just race cars. Yeah.
Sometimes the compromise is not quite as safe as a full-on purpose-built race car.
Yeah, well, the suspension's not in them, So, and because I'd gone down classes, my reaction times were so much quicker, so it was a little bit slow. So I was just holding the thing wide open and not and just steering it in, and and the suspension really wasn't up to what I was trying to do with the car. So we hit a bit of a bump.
I love racing in it. Now, I'll have a lot of racing up there where you're at.
Well, to be honest, this is kind of funny, but I don't really know what I don't know about road racing or off track. Drag racing and street racing are the only 2 things I've really partook in. And street racing, just basically dangerous things done safely way back when. But I never really been on a dirt track or road course, something like that, because to me, to practice to that is something you had to do at night. And the consequence of getting it wrong was a tree or a guardrail. So I never really explored going fast around corners in my street cars because I didn't have the money to have a track car. But there is racing around here. New York State, there's a lot. There's Stafford Springs. That's a big round track. There's a few tracks around here, definitely. And drag strips is a couple. There's New England Dragway and Lebanon Valley.
They're trying to kill them. They're trying to kill the racetracks. I feel that Cletus McFarland, we're going to the air show in Florida. My boys are pilots, and so we're into airplanes too. And we went to the one up there in your part of the country. What's that called? That
New England Dragway or
no, I'm talking about the air show.
Oh, yeah. Fort Devens or something.
Anyway, they got one down here in Florida we're going to, but it's not far from that Cletus McFarland's thing. So we're going to go down to that place. I don't know if you know Cletus or anything.
He's made his own empire, his own drag strip, his own little playground. Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah,
but they're fixing they rezoned that right beside the racetrack, and they're fixing to put in condos.
No.
Yeah, and he fought it, and and it's done. I mean, it's over with. When they start building condos, it's done. Yeah.
Well, we all know that Pomona, the Winter Nationals, I mean, for years, the NHRA would pay for people to have a little holiday. Seriously, these are nice houses, but people kept moving in and then complaining about the drag strip. And then now they're only 2 times a year. It used to be they had weekend drags there, but it just kind of stinks when the rest of the world gets in the way. And they come in your way, but I don't know. Yeah.
Atlanta Dragway, it's gone. They done dug it up. It's done. It's finished. It's over with. So that's sad though, man. It's sad. They got to be someplace that we can get out and do all this kind of stuff and drag race and enjoy a car. And like I say, man, I appreciate what you're doing. I've held you up longer than I told you I was going to, but Steve, I'm a big fan. What time do you upload your videos in the morning? You do it every morning?
Every 6 a.m. East Coast time, 6 a.m. every single day. Now, the only thing sometimes that'll happen is we're about to get a foot of snow supposedly tomorrow, and we didn't shoot this week yet. So we have another 5 videos to go. And then what will happen is if there's snow on the cars, I do reruns, because if they can't see the car, why waste it with a foot of snow on it? You know what I mean? And plus the paper props get wet. It's frustrating. So it's every single day except the occasional winter snowstorm, which may or may not happen this week. But there's 5 more to go this week, and then we'll be back soon. But every day, 6 a.m. That's the next YouTube channel.
I drive a school bus, and about 6 a.m. That's about when I get ready to leave. And I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, you uploaded one, and I was the first one to. There was 0, and I said, "I'm first.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Now, Copperhead's wanting to move to America. He's trying hard to get over here. And so maybe you want to go to Berniston, Massachusetts. Up, are you like that?
Yeah,
cold?
Nah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, if you don't like winter, well, I lived in LA for 17 years, and what I found was, this is kind of weird, but your mood and the weather are closely linked. Sometimes it's January 399th, it's a 1, kind of crappy. July 4th, it's a 10. Yeah, around here. But in LA, it was always a 6. No 10s, but no 1s. It was weird. It was just weird, like it's weird. It was always nice and warm, but you got used to it, and you need a roller coaster, a little winter, a little spring, a little summer.
Yeah.
For me.
So that's here in Georgia. It's like that. We get down to about 30 or 30. Now it got cold there. We had a cold snap. We call it down here. That's the southern terms, cold snap.
Yeah, sure.
We get 0. Now that was cold in this part of the country.
And the wind blows a little bit, and you snap your robe comes off. It'll snap right up.
But normally they don't get.
I'll do the conversion. I'll tell you what a cold snap is here. Wait a minute. I'll see I'll do the conversion.
I can't get the conversion. And it's actually tomorrow where he's at, right?
Well, yeah, 32 is 0 Celsius. So 0 Fahrenheit is like 20 below or something. I don't know.
So cold snap where I am 68 Fahrenheit.
Wow. Yeah.
You need to go to
Florida.
I'm in
Queensland. Queensland's hot and humid. Yeah. So
why do you want to leave Australia? I mean, not that you want to leave Australia, but I mean, it's
no, I want to.
Yeah.
Is
it the regulation? Is the hot rod?
It's a bit of everything. I don't know, like the way the country is, and I'm more into American stuff, I think. Yeah.
Well, it's a big world.
With all the rules and regulations, you can't do anything, and you're just over policed, and the way the government is and everything. I just want to get out of here. So, and then I like American racing, and I like American cars, and my YouTube channel's more targeted towards an American audience. So, yeah, I don't know. Change is good, isn't it?
Sure.
Keeps your brain going, doesn't it? You know, bit of a challenge and starting for again. So I don't know.
Well, now, Steve, you worked down in Atlanta for a while. Did you not work in Atlanta for a while? I was thinking about years ago. Did you not have an opportunity to come to Georgia or something you had?
No. RTM Productions, which is in Tennessee. Right. I went there. I was going to maybe go work for them for a few, but we didn't do it. But no, I've never worked. I've certainly, been at the Commerce Drag Strip, been there for hot rod shooting stories, but I've never lived there. Right. I visited a bunch of times. Hot rod power trees to drive through, but it's a big country. It's the globe is a beautiful place.
The power tour is going to be down south this time. I think it's starting out in Atlanta this year.
Wow.
I hadn't done the power tour. I'm thinking about doing it.
It's cool. I haven't done one. I left Hot Rod Magazine on January 20th, 2004. 19 years ago. Crazy. But I was there for 7 years. But when I was at Hot Rod, I did, I think, 7 or 8 power tours, and they were a thrill. But they were kind of, back then we didn't have any, there was no internet. It was just coming on, this email thing, and we were shooting film, and it was kind of a problem. All week long you're shooting the story, and you get back to the office, then you can start writing. So it was always a grind. But as a civilian, I would love to go on power tour.
Yeah. I'm gonna try it this year. It's gonna be, I don't know if I'm gonna go on the whole thing, but I might take a leg of it or something, because I gotta work. I'm not rich like some people, I got to get there and do it. You're talking about magazines. I had a guy last week or week before last give me a whole box, and I'm talking, I bet there's 100 or more cartoon magazines. You remember those from 61 through 65 or 68 or something?
$20 a piece, pretty easy. Those are, not that money is the whole thing, but they're good. Yeah, Pete Millar's cartoons. Those are pretty hot. And if there's any surf tunes in there, those are also pretty popular.
I haven't went through them. There's so many of them, but they're in the mid 60s. I know they're in the mid 60s. I don't think right in there, but they're cool to look at. I told my wife, I said, I'd like to just make a whole wall of them, like a wall display, just put them up because they just give them to me, And,
that's cool. Yeah, magazines. I mean, I want to hold you up to it, but for many years, my dream was to write for Hot Rod, and I finally did. But the car magazine world, as we all know, imploded on what was the date? It was December 6, 2019, when 19 out of 22 titles were discontinued on one Friday afternoon, leaving just Motor Trend, Hot Rod, and Four Wheeler, Carcraft, Rod and Custom, 5 Liter, all those just gone. All the employees were sent home. It was sad, but so the car magazine world ain't what it was, but
I'd hate to be in the car magazine world right now.
Yeah, there isn't one. I was a freelance writer for years. There's nothing to do. So YouTube's great because the internet kind of ate that up. You know what I mean? One thing with magazines, we used to cover the Winter Nationals, and 3 months later, our story would come out on the newsstands. 3 months lead time. It's kind of like there was no point. So it had a lot going against it. But magazines are still cool. They're collectible.
Yeah.
Those cartoons are $25 a piece. If you can.
I like YouTube, but I cannot, for the life of me, figure out this analytic stuff, man. I can put a video up and it'll get 0. I can put a video up and it'll get 1,000. I mean, it's like, what the heck, man?
Yeah.
What?
Same here. I don't even know how to shoot. My buddy Shane Richardson, he shoots them and he uploads them. That's the thing. I talk to the camera. Some people do it themselves, but the reality is, for me, there's a performance element to it. Hey, welcome back to whatever it is you're talking to the camera. And if you're holding it in your hand, it's kind of weird. And then if you say, hey, let's look inside this car, then you got to manipulate and bump around and crap. Otherwise, you can just, hey, come on and follow me. The camera follows you into the car. You look at the dome light, the torn headline, or whatever it is, and there's no need to edit. Editing is the thing, kills time, and just do it.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Now, are you build a Fairmont? Are you a Fairmont fan, or it just happened to be something that you got?
Well, in a nutshell, when I was in California, the first one I did was the Wilshire Shaker Nova, which, of course, this orange and white.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, that thing right there. Yeah, that thing, whatever.
And that's one of the prettiest Novas I think they ever built.
Yeah, that was the Chevy. And then I did this with a Max Wedge, and I says, I want to do a Ford. And to be honest with you, I wanted to do a 65 fastback. Problem is, the core for one of these was 10 grand then. I says, okay, what other two-door post rear-wheel drive Ford is good? Fairmont, two-door post. And I says, okay, because to me, the 4.6 and 5.4 4-valve Camry motors are the grandchildren of the 427 Camry. They really are.
4.6
chain drive, the little ones there, but they're massive. They're big engines. So I says, how about we do a modern take on a 65 FX car using modern weird stuff? So I'm not really a Ford guy, but the idea was originally to do a Mustang, but just the price of entry for a two-door.
Crazy.
Properly done, a Camry, stretch nose, Hillborns, but that's a couple $100,000 away. The Fairmont was only 20,000 away, if you know.
I don't know. Of course, I'm 4. I've got the what is that called? The Mercury Marauder.
Yeah.
I've got the
4.6 4-valve. That's the only time that engine went up in a 4-door.
Yeah, that's a sweet car, man. That's a sweet car. It really is. So anyway, hey, Steve Maggs, I watch all of his videos. There you go.
Kenny Richard.
Yep, he greatly appreciates it too. So no doubt. But
and tomorrow, a 1948 Hudson Commodore is going to be featured, and that's an interesting car. So tomorrow's video is 6 a.m. if you get a chance, check it out. And of course, today the Carmen Ghia and how it was basically a ripoff of a Virgil Exner design. That's today's YouTube Junkyard Crawl video. Anyway, every day a new one. Bunch of Lincolns coming up this week. Continental Mark III, a 62 Lincoln 4-door with aluminum drum brakes up front. Kind of cool. So a lot of weird stuff coming up this week. Anyway.
You better hurry because them cars are rusting, man, fast up there, man. It's sad. I know it is crazy.
They're beyond hope. They are. Most of these cars, if you went to pick up, they crumble. But with that said, they don't eat, and the owner's no rush. He doesn't want to crush them. And there's a lot of stuff on each one, but he just lets them sit there, which is cool. It's better than crushing them and getting rid of them because when they're they're gone.
A piece of chrome or something, there's always something you can use on a car,
glass,
all that. So I've got a buddy of mine got one of them Studebaker Avantis, and he said that back window is, you can't find it on the Avanti. They don't even make it. So if something ever happens to it, it's done. So anyway, Steve, we're going to get off here, man. I appreciate you coming. I'd love to get you back on here because I like picking your brain, and you are super, super nice. Everybody I talk to that knows you, man, they're like, man, this is first class, but support your channel, and I know we all do. And just like Keith, right, Kenny Richard, we watch all your stuff, and I don't think you need to change nothing on it, man. Just get more subscribers. Keep building them subscribers, baby.
Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it, but I thank you all. And anytime I'll come back on, Steve, and Copperhead Customs. Come on out to America, and I don't know, it's you only live once, and anyway.
Yeah, Nathan Mopar's a great show. He loves it too. So there you go. All right. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.